Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Denise, and I'm going to be taking you through Digimap for Schools today. This is Digimap for Schools, and when you first open Digimap for Schools, that's what you see. So you have the mapping area, which is right in the center, and you can even zoom out a little more, so you can have a nicer view of the world. You can scroll around, just click, hold, and drag your map around to move to where you want to be. You can zoom it in just by rolling the scrolling button on the mouse, and you can zoom out in the same way. If you have a touch screen, you can pinch wider and narrower to as you would do to look at a photo on your phone. And you can also use the bars here, up to zoom in, low to zoom out. And you can zoom in also using this square on the top of the bar. So if I click on the square and then I click an area and drag, and when I release, it is going to zoom in exactly what I want it to zoom in. And if I want to zoom in a little farther, I can repeat the same operation. And I have a nice and very close view of my chosen area. So this is the zoom in. I'm going to zoom out now so that we can start again from the beginning and I can show you other functions. First, the search button here. The search button is where you will find places that you are interested in. So you can choose a city, a town, a street, a school, or even a capital like Paris, for example. And it will show you places in the UK with the name Paris in them. Most of them are Paris though, and you can scroll down to look at them, or you can look at places in the world. And for places in the world, you can see Paris, France, and there is a place called Paris in Texas, USA. Let's go to France, and I'm in Paris now. But let's say I don't want just Paris, I want Eiffel Tower. When I press enter, I have here as a global landmark and a touristic attraction. So when I click on that, it is going to take me exactly where I want to be in the Eiffel Tower in Paris. I'm zooming in a little more so that you can see the contours of the tower. It always appears with a mark, a pointer. So the pointer means that it is showing you exactly the place you are supposed to go to. So if I zoom in or out, the pointer will continue there. Sometimes when I zoom in and the pointer is not in the center, like if it is here, for example, as I zoom in, it goes out of focus and I lose my area. So all I need to do is to zoom out a little more, center my pointer and zoom in, adjust until I have it at the zoom level I want. Once I have my pointer in my place in the level that I want, I can click on the X and the pointer will disappear. So that means that if I zoom out and zoom in again, I might, if it is not centered, I might lose the place. For that, it is always recommended to use a marker because a marker won't disappear, will stay there for as long as you want it to be there. And how would we use a marker there? So let me go to drawing tools. You open drawing tools and here you have markers that you can use. I will go back to the Eiffel Tower and I will choose a marker and will add my marker in the place I want it to be. Let's say I want a local place and I'm looking for Green Primary School. So Green Primary School, it is a place in the UK. I can look for a school as well. And as I zoom in, I have my school right here. So I don't want that pointer there because this is taking away my view of the mapping area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a marker in my school. I can also customize my markers. If I don't want a red marker, for example, I can change the color of my marker and put something like yellow, for example. And when I click, my marker will be in the color that I want. I can also change the line. I can have a solid line or a dotted line. I can change the thickness of my line, and I can play around and modify and have different markers of different colors to symbolize a school or different types of buildings, a hospital, someone's house, or John's house, Peter's house, Anna's house, in different colors with different markers. I can create an activity with my students to add trees to the place where I would like to see a forest around the school, and I can add the smiling face and then the sad face for places that are good and places that are bad, places that I want and places that I don't want. I'm going to now show you something else. I can also add a polygon. A polygon is something that I can use for showing an area or marking different buildings. Like if you go for a walk with your students in a local area around the school, they can create polygons in the places where there are different types of shops, for example, in the high street, and they can use different colors for each one of the polygons. The shapes that I have, they are the polygon, can have the freehand drawing, triangle, square, rectangle, etc. So I'm going to draw a polygon now. And here I go. So I click and leave and click and leave and click and leave. And at the end, I click again where I started. I have a polygon. If I don't like the color, I can either change before or I can change afterwards. So to change the color afterwards, I will click on select. I will select my polygon, and then I can change the color to red. I can adjust. You can make it more transparent, your polygon, or you can make your polygon more opaque. That means you won't see what is beneath it, and you can just adjust as you want. Besides the polygon, you can also draw a line. Let's say I want a line that shows me the distance between this building and the main entrance of the school. When I click again, so I click, just roll my mouse, no need to be dragging or to be clicking more, and I only click twice at the end, double click at the end. As I said, you can have a polygon and you can have a line. You can change your line as well. You can decide if you want your line to be, I will show something else here. I can delete all. If I choose delete all, it will ask me if I want to delete all my drawings. I don't, so I keep my drawings. But if I click on delete on click, I just click on the mistake I made and I can start over again. So as I was saying, I drew a line here. Now I can measure my line. I click on measure, and when I click on the line, the measurement will appear. The same for the polygon. I click on measure, and I can choose between metric and imperial, and when I click here, it will appear. I can also add a text, and a text here, it will be more like a label. If I choose text, I click here. When I click on my school, let's say BGPS, Bow Green Primary School. Enter for OK. And when the little hand appears, I can hover my label wherever I want. So I will drop it here. And I can also use a text box. A text box is different because it won't appear as a label. It will appear more like a note. It is more for the student to make annotations, or for you to make annotations of what you want the students to do with that map. A text box will always come with a marker, and will bring the last marker that you used. If you don't want that, you can change it. So I will change to this shape here, and then I quite like the orange, so I'm not changing the color. And when I click on my map, the text box will appear, and I can say I play football here. And I click away, and I can come and make it smaller or bigger. It depends on how much text I want. And I can click and change, move around so that I take it out of my way. So those are some things you can do with the drawing tools. You can customize your map. You can play with your map as much as you want with your students. You can also add images that, let's say you go around the school with your students, you take photos, and you can then add your photos to your map. Amy, you have a question?
Yeah, is this something, so we've got a Digimap log on for the school. Is this
Yeah.
something that every student could have up on the iPad on the same password?
Yes, absolutely. When you receive your password, the password is the same for the whole school, and I will show you how you can customize and create your own folder and have your activities in your one space. But yes, every student can have the Digimap at the same time in their iPad, and you can have a whole classroom activity where they will be adding elements to their map as well.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
No worries. So I clicked on the image, and when I click on wherever I want in the map, let's click here, it will ask me to select a file. I will click on this little paper clip, go to where my files are. I have something here on demo, and I have my school here. So as I said, you go around, you take photos, you save them, and then you can add them to your map and populate your map with different images. And again, when the little hand appears, you can play with your image, take it out of the way. You can also use the grid reference. So there is the automatic 2, 4, 6, and 10 digits grid reference. And the automatic one, what it means is it will adjust to the level you are zoomed in. So if I'm zoomed out a lot, and I click here, I will have these numbers. If I am zoomed in a lot and I click, I will have more numbers. So the more zoomed in I am, the more numbers I have. The less zoomed in, the more zoomed out, the less numbers I have. So I have all this, and I have also the buffer tool. The buffer tool is very useful for secondary schools, I think. You can have a point buffer or a line buffer. A point buffer means that you measure the area of something squarey, or like if I want to measure the area of the school, I would then choose my radius, let's say 10 meters, and when I click, it will show me the area that it's 10 meters. I can measure that as well, the same way I measure the polygon and the line. I just click on measure and on my buffer tool, and it will tell me the area that I'm measuring. When I click on measuring, as I said, you can choose metric or imperial, and you can play around with both of them. Maybe you can have half the students use metric, half use imperial, and then they debate or they work together to convert. And the buffer tool that I want to show you that is also very useful for secondary schools is the line buffer. So let's say I don't know how thick this river is, but let's say 8 meters. And because I know that is how much this river grows to the side when it rains a lot. So if you want to measure something like noise pollution in a train track or flooding in a river, you can use the buffer tool. So if you just need to know how far did the noise of that train in that city, how far does it travel, and you can measure through that. And here is my buffer tool as well. And again, when you are doing your buffer tool, you can customize and use the color and the lines as you want them. Once I have everything here and I have everything done, I can just play around. So I can play with my polygons as well. I will just build a polygon that I want to play, like this square here or this rectangle here. So let's say I have a rectangle and I can modify. I can select, I can select as a box. I will show that function later. Select with the arrow means that you select what you worked on, what you created. And you can modify. You can add a label. You can add points, rotate, scale, and transform. So adding a label, it's the same as when you add a text, and you can add points. I think I don't want a rectangle. I want this place to like a house or I can rotate, I can scale, I can make it smaller or bigger as I want, and I can transform. Transform will give me a more sort of 3D sense of the image, or 2D, I mean. I have all my drawings here, and now I want to save them because I want to use it in the next class. So I will just go here and I will save my map. I will add a title, a class name, a pupil name, and then when I hit save, the map will be saved here until I decide that I don't need it anymore. I can delete, but to delete, you need the pin. I don't recommend you to give the pin to students because students can go and block and you won't be able to save anything anymore. So you can pass the passwords to students, but not the PIN. Another reason not to pass the PIN to students is that when you save something here, everyone will see in this school. So you can create your own folders. So I have folders here, and I have 3 folders. You can have a folder for each class. This is my folder. Everything that is in my folder, everything that I saved with my class is here, and I can say I can take it and rescue. So if I have another map here for ball green, so I will click open and it will ask me if I want to replace my drawings or merge the drawings. As it is the same area, let's try to merge it and see what happens. It put together things that I had before and things that I built now. So I can see everything that I have. I can create a folder just as I would on a folder system in Microsoft, for example. I create my folder and I add elements to it. But because I can see everything, I can see things that my colleague created as well. I can see things from the other class. For that reason, we highly recommend not to add any personal data, any personal information, because whatever you put there, other people will see. Sometimes even parents, when they are helping students with the homework, they will be able to see. And if you have, for example, indication for Peter and John and Mary's house, it will be seen there. If children are to identify, for example, how long it takes from their house to school, I recommend if you really want to do that activity, you don't save it, or you save under some funny names. I think it would be quite entertaining for the children, like Mickey Mouse, Alice in the Wonderland, and so on. So this is the drawing tools. And once I'm done, I can, as I said, either save or I can dispose of them. A quick way to dispose of everything is to click on those arrows that say start again. I click here, reload, and my map is as good as new. Everything that was here disappeared. Let's zoom in again and let's look for a place where I can show you something else. Here, the Holy Island. I always like to look at the Holy Island because it has lots of stuff we can see for the key tools. When I click on the key tools here, I can extend all, but then I will have to do a lot of screwing down or collapse all and expand just the ones I want. I have lots of symbols in my map, including the roads. So when I look at the keys, I will look at what type of roads I'm dealing with, and I can check with the students if they can distinguish, if they can understand what type of road each place has, or their community, their school, railways, air travel, and I can look at with younger students, they quite like to look at tourist information. So they can identify here is a duck, and what do I see? Okay, this bird is a nature reserve. So this, what is this? What is this symbol here? So they can go and explore and annotate and create their own activities. For the other students, symbols like the land features and water features, they are quite handy. So here, for example, I have a mast, and here I have a wind turbine. So if you are studying electricity, for example, in a specific area, you can identify how many wind turbines are there. how sustainable the place is, and so on. So the key is quite good for that as well. And as you zoom out, you can see the key changes and will change every time you zoom out and will become less detailed. So the more zoomed in, the more detail you have, the more less zoomed in, the less detail you end up with just roads and motorways. And it depends on what you want to study with your students. You can use either or. Let me just go back here to the map and let me look for a place called Darrington in Wiltshire. So I found Darrington, and let's see what I can see here in Darrington. So it's quite a nice place. It's quite a good place for us to understand growth, for example. And it's the same, you can do the same with Milton Keynes, for example. So here inside of the mapping area, I have the OS grid reference, which I can use when you're using grid reference with your students. That's quite handy. And you can use also the map selector. The map selector will allow you to see the Ordnance Survey maps, the contemporary maps, aerial and 1950s maps and 1890s maps. So looking at Darrington, let's go to 1890s. You can do that either clicking or you can do that by sliding your cursor from one side to another. If I want to see how it was, how the place was in 1890s, I will zoom out a bit so that you can double check. And I can also look at 1950s and you can see some city already growing. It was just farmland. Now I can see something is growing here. And if I go all the way, I will see a much bigger place. And you can use this to look at map for identify growth over time, to identify land use change, identify how urban change impacted the city, impact the river, impact the forest, how much a forest shrunk throughout the years, for example. And you can also look at the aerial image of the place. And you can play around with the map selector and see what you want to do with your students, what you want to analyze. So the tool here is quite a fun and interesting tool for the students to play around and to understand change in time. Now going to the overlays, we have Great Britain overlays, GB overlays, which are roads, place names, and we have the British National Grid here as well. And we have the postcode overlays. So the postcode, the more you zoom in, the more detailed postcode you have. So you have full postcodes here. If you zoom out, you have less detail in your postcode, maybe one or two letters here, for example. You can have boundaries and shipping forecast areas. For now, I want to show you my favorite for principally for the younger students, which is the coloring. You have to zoom in a lot. As you can see, it's grayed out here. I have to zoom in. I found a school. I want a coloring in map of my school. So to remove all the colors, and if I hit print up here, generate a file for printing, I can look at the printing options, exactly or rounded, PDF, A4, portrait or landscape, and I can have the national grid lines, and I can also add legends. And if I have drawings, I can choose to carry my drawings on to my my file as well. So let's generate a file and I will show you how it's going to look like. Okay, this is my file. That is how it is going to look like when it's generated. And it looks quite cool. So you can take this with your students and go around and color in manually different houses, different types of buildings, or you can color in here using the drawing tools as well. So you go around, identify buildings, then they come back and they color in digitally and create their own map with their own interpretation. So I quite like this overlay, this GP overlay. And you can have world climate overlays. For that one, as everything is grayed out, because I need to be at minimum zoom level, I can just click those arrows instead of scrolling over and over and over, and it will bring me to as small as the map can be. And I can choose temperature, world temperature from 1970s to 2000. I can choose the 2010 to 2018 and the projected 21 to 40. And I can choose two different ones if I want to, and I can play around with them. And a good way to do that is to play with the transparency so that you can see it's changing. So if I have both that I have open with half transparency, I can actually play around and see the differences where they are. I can all do the same with the precipitation overlays. So if you are studying precipitation, temperature, and the world climate in general, that is a good tool to use. If you would prefer to work with the population density and world time zones, you can use the overlays over here. Here, for example, you can understand the population and concentration of people in specific areas. So the density of the Egyptian population is around the Nile River, for example. So you can discuss that with your students and you can help them to understand and identify what points, even in the UK, where is it in the map, which towns, which places are those that are mostly populated. So you can see London is clearly the most populated area in the UK in comparison to some parts of Scotland that is quite bright yellow. And you have the legend here as well. You can identify and look with your students. The world time zones is a fun one to go with the upper primary, for example. So they can identify places and play around with the time. What time is it in Singapore now? What time is it in Brazil? What time is it in some parts of Africa? Are they all the same? Are the countries, do they have the same time zone? So if you are working on time zones, if you are studying time zones with your students, this is a good map to have and to work with your students. And you can have also the physical geography, and that one will show the biomes. If you are studying forests, for example, you can see the different types of forests, and there is again, you can have here a legend and you can identify what type of the forest is present where. UK basically will have two main types of forests, and you can discuss with your students what causes them to be different. So that is a good resource for understanding types of forest. And you can also have the mountain ranges. The mountain range is very good in combination with the volcanoes or the tectonic plates or tectonic boundaries as well. So here you have tectonic boundaries, volcanoes, and mountains, and you can explain them all together and what happens, why they are particularly close to each other. For the tectonic boundaries, you can have different types. It will be the same for tectonic plates. For the volcanoes, volcanoes will also have a legend here, so they can understand different types of volcanoes, and they can play with different types of volcanoes. So these are the main overlays. The last one here is the reference grids. And the reference grids, you can have just latitude and longitude, or you can combine with the major lines that is the tropics and the equator, Arctic Circle, and so either or both together, and you can play around that with your students. You can also measure place from A to B. The only issue with the measuring is that it won't stay, it won't save, and it will disappear as soon as you refresh your map. If you want to save your measuring, you use the one I showed you on the drawing tools. Here we are not adding our images, we are looking for images that already exist. They are images that come from photograph, and so I will just zoom in into a random area and open photograph and look for places like, let's say, church. So there are no churches here, but there are some over here. So the little camera will show me a church or something that has the name church in it. So be careful, not always when you look for a church, you'll find a church. You'll find that there is a word church in the description because photograph will look for the words, not for the concept. You can look for, also if you look for church and you don't find the church you want, you look for place of worship or synagogue or whatever specific church you want to find, because photograph is added by people and each person will have their own interpretation of what a church is. So let's say I want to find art, so places that people considered artistic. There is a number 3, that means there are 3 images. So someone found that this lion is artistic. So if you know exactly what they are looking for, it makes it easier. Or otherwise, you can just explore with your students and see what monuments they have, what artistic pieces they have in that place, how many churches, how many schools, and the photograph will help you to find that. So it's quite a lot of fun for the students as well. You can also identify yourself in the map. So as I move my cursor, it is going to be changing here, but I just want to know here in the Canary Wharf where exactly I am. I just need to connect coordinate capture to stop moving around. And when I click, it will appear, and then I can copy, or I can copy from here the information. I can create my own CSV file from here, for example. And why would I want a CSV file? I will show you why now. You can add your own data to your map. So if you click here, add your own data, and you want to go, for example, to London with your students, and you want them to help you to find attractions in London and to plan them with you. So you open, you find your folder, your CSV file, open, import, and all the points that we are looking for are going to be appearing here. I can see what is in here. Maybe it will help if I go to drawing tools and use the select box I mentioned before. So I create a box and I selected all the pointers, all the markers, but now I want it to be visible. And I can just change the color. Let me change to yellow to see if it helps. When I click on my map, my pointers are yellow. So I have all the places in London I still can see well. A solution for that is to go to aerial view, and it will be much more visible. So students can then go to the drawing tool again and create lines between points and calculate around the streets, how long it takes from one point to another, and plan their trajectory this way as well. When you click on this question mark here, it will take you to the user manual where you will find everything I told you and more in details. And you can also find the training events. That is our next training. The following one is biodiversity and local wildlife habitats on the 22nd of October. And you can also look at the learning resources. This is going to change soon, but you will still be able to see this page. You will still be able to see the learning resources. And we have many of them, and we are producing more now, so there will be more very soon. They are quite good resources which you can explore. You can choose the age, the subject, the type of resource. You can click on what you want. You have resources for primary, secondary, and early years, and you can use this straight from the shelf with your students. Or if you would prefer to customize it and to use it in a different way, you can download the Word document and use it with your student as well. That is what I wanted to show you, and it's very quick. It's just 1 hour, and we have a lot of tools and a lot of things you can do with Digimap for schools. So if there is anything that wasn't well explained you would like to hear more, please just let me know. Thank you very much.